to Paul's point here, he says Stuart Mandel is just playing devil's advocate. That could be. I don't know. Only one man's opinion. Mandel had USC ranked, did you tell me, 13th in the country?
Yeah.
So is that, I don't see that as being that much of a slam on USC.
What's noticeable is that having USC behind Oregon. And you made the point yourself, Mark, that Oregon is reworking its culture. Oregon is reworking its roster. And of course, Dan Lanning doesn't have experience as a college football head coach. Lincoln Riley does. So again, it just goes to the point of, if you're going to make the argument about culture, and you're going to frame it in a specific way, just there are some loopholes there. There are some things that Mandel, I don't think, tied together as fully as he could have. I understand the larger point that he's making, that there's so many moving parts and Clay Helton left behind such a big mess. But if you're framing this in terms of culture, it just seems as though you're not arguing about the roster composition, or you're not arguing as precisely about specific obvious weaknesses that USC has. Like, again, we're not pretending USC doesn't have certain significant weaknesses, but couching it in terms of culture, it just seems like a weird way to go, especially when you look at Oregon also trying to remake itself after Mario Cristobal left for Miami.
Tim brings up a point here concerning the roster. So we know that USC has added significant talent. It's the top-rated transfer portal class in the country. But is it even beyond that, Matt, when it comes to not just going out and trying to get a collection of talent and get the best players possible, but is, to Tim's point, is there a level of mastery and strategy there that Lincoln Riley's executing in building the roster?
Well, I mean, I think it just starts with excellence. Like Lincoln Riley, here's a larger point. USC fans were upset about the air raid with Clay Helton and that it was a gimmick offense, and USC doesn't need to resort to gimmicks. But the thing about Lincoln Riley is he kind of defies easy categorization. Like, he doesn't exist in a neat little box. He has innovative offense. He's in step with the modern game that college football has become. But there's also a side of him that is perfectly happy to mash the ball between the tackles. He did that at Oklahoma at times when he had the offensive line that could support that, especially in the 2017 season when he had an elite offensive line, made the Rose Bowl, very nearly made the national championship game. He is willing to lean into the run game when he has all the horses. He didn't really do that last year because, as we've talked in previous weeks and months, he had just Kennedy Brooks and Eric Gray. He had a very thin room. There were some roster disruptions, some suspensions, some other plot twists that left him undermanned in the running back room, so he couldn't hand the ball off nearly as much as he would have wanted to. But the larger point about Lincoln Riley is he has a little bit of student body right in him, appealing to the old 1970s USC smash mouth formula, but he's also this modern offensive innovator. So stylistically, the main thing about Lincoln Riley is not so much having one style. It's that he can live comfortably in these different worlds. So when we talk about his recruiting philosophy, when we talk about his transfer portal philosophy, I don't think it's so much stylistic. I think it's just about excellence. Just give me some great players. And of course, the fact that Clay Helton so poorly coached and developed players from 2021, see, that's another part of this that people might be missing, that Lincoln Riley isn't just going into the transfer portal a lot in 2022 because it's his first season and he knows that the transfer portal is a way to instantly upgrade the roster. That's true, but because he's taking over from a coach where players were so poorly developed, did he really want to take on the task of trying to develop those Clay Helton players in one season? Or should he take a more fully formed transfer portal player from another program where he doesn't have to be starting from scratch as regularly with so many guys? Better to get 15, 20, 25 Clay Helton players out the door, bring in more fully formed players so that he's not coaching as many players from the ground up. It's the same for Alex Grinch on defense. I think that is a part of this. Like, let's say that a different coach, Lincoln Riley, was taking over from a different coach who had his own problems, but at least was able to develop players. Maybe like the recruiting was bad, but the developmental side was good. Something like Dan Mullen at Florida. Like Dan Mullen, a masterful schematic coach, great at play design, great at teaching, where to be on the field, how to go about your business, but a bad recruiter. So let's just enter a world briefly where Lincoln Riley was taking over for Dan Mullen, not Clay Helton. Would you have seen quite as much transfer portal activity? I think the equation would be different in that instance. Just if we're playing along and just trying to get a sense for why Lincoln Riley has attacked the portal, pursued it so aggressively in this offseason, the Clay Helton angle is part of this, and it shouldn't be ignored or minimized.